Welcome to Yes Also. I'm Suzi Barrett. My guest today is the creator and star of the improvised podcast Hello from the Magic Tavern, Arnie Niekamp. If you haven't listened to Hello from the Magic Tavern yet, what are you doing? It's really funny, but in addition to that, it's full of really nuanced play and a lot of techniques that I use as examples in my classes. And we not only deep dive into a lot of those today, but we also pull back the curtain on the podcast a little bit, and Arnie shares things like how he keeps track of all the canonical information that comes up in an improvised universe, and also a fun narrative storytelling trick that he's learned. In part 2, he talks about some hilarious standout moments in some of their live shows, and we talk about his work as one of the designers of the Jackbox games. I've been a big fan of their work for years. They really saved me during COVID, and I was excited to ask some questions about the creative process there. Part 2 is available for subscribers. Please become a subscriber by going to yesalso.supercast.com. It's how we pay our guests and how we keep this show going, and we are so grateful for the support. If you want to help the show but you can't subscribe, no worries. Please help us out by recommending us to your improv communities or rating and reviewing us on your podcast platforms. All of that stuff helps out Yes Also so much. And Arnie would like you to know that the Jackbox Party Pack 11 is now available, so buy that and play it, and think of Arnie when you do. Okay, and now, Arnie Niekamp. Arnie, hello.
Hi, so good to see you. It's been a while.
It has been a while. We, just for the listeners, just a little recap, we had... Previously on Arnie and Suzi's life, we had I.O. classes together in Chicago in somewhere around like 2001. Does that sound right to you?
I think so. I'm so bad with dates, but I think, right around there.
Yeah, and then cut to many decades later, now I'm a fan of your podcast, Hello from the Magic Tavern, was like, oh, great, Arnie's still improvising. You were always one of the funniest people in our class, so I was glad to see that
much.
You continued. Yeah. I left Chicago. You continued on. You are a Chicago improv superstar and now a global improv superstar.
I'm a global superstar. Thank you for finally, someone said it.
Someone said it. Someone had to.
Someone was brave enough to finally classify me as a global superstar.
Oh my God, and thank you for calling me brave. I was waiting for someone to do that.
Can we just agree up front? Let's just gas each other up as much as possible.
Yeah, please.
Yes.
So give me the thumbnail sketch of your improv career, and then we can deep dive into chapters. I definitely want to cover a ton of Magic Tavern stuff, but let's start from the beginning. Are you from Chicago, and is that how you came to know about improv, or did your journey start somewhere else?
I grew up in Ohio. I went to college at OU down in Athens, Ohio, and I studied creative writing. So I kind of come at it all from from a writing perspective a little bit.
What does that mean to you? Like when you look at that in terms of improv, do you mean like you approach scenes and shows almost with a writerly side, or do you just mean you come at your career from a writer aspect?
I think definitely to start, like it's changed over the years, but at the beginning I was like trying to plan it out as much as possible. Like really like, what's the idea? How can I quickly define what it is up top? And also then just always being a little more idea based than emotion based, basically.
Yeah.
Just more right. I guess I think of it as like people who come to it from a writing background, versus people who come to it from maybe like a theater background or something like that.
Yeah, gotcha. You're very primary. Your primary focus is the what more than the who and the where. The what or the how. Yeah. Cool. So creative writing. What were you?
I loved comedy. I don't think there was. I mean, there maybe was some improv floating around campus when I was in college, but there was nothing that I was ever aware of. When I finished college, I was like, I don't know what to do with myself. so I will go straight into grad school. When people are like, "Oh,
keep me in your womb, school of no risks." Yeah.
When people are like, "Oh, you went to grad school. That's impressive." I try to immediately disabuse them. I'm like, "Look, it was purely just a lack of knowing what to do at all." So I went to U of A in Tucson, studying creative writing.
With a minor in delay of game.
Exactly. With a minor in credit card debt, I guess, would have been my minor. But it was actually a wonderful time. I did a fair amount of writing, and that was nice. But I also discovered, like so many people in colleges, like a good enough comedy group, like a good enough sketch and improv comedy group, and really sort of fell in love with it. And while there, the school gave us some money to come to Chicago for the Chicago Improv Festival.
Oh, cool.
And I had, it's so funny beforehand. People were like, there's something called the Herald. We don't know what it is, but we're excited to find out what it is.
Going on a quest to just find out what it was.
Because it was really just a bunch of college kids who had seen Whose Line Is It Anyway, sort of kind of trying to teach each other how to do it.
Right.
And I saw, because I had watched the Upright Citizens Brigade TV show on Comedy Central, that's what brought me to seeing their show at the Improv Festival. And it blew my mind. It was like, this is what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I vividly remember their suggestion was dog. Oh, wait, what's the swearing level on the podcast?
Maximum. Swear as much as you can.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll try.
And in fact, anything that you haven't swore during, we will add in post.
Just add in.
So, yes.
Perfect.
It's like reverse bleeping.
The suggestion was dog fucking.
Okay.
And I remember just being so impressed by how quickly they made that, like, without shying away from that, like, elevating it, right? Like, doing a monologue about, there's a kid in school, everybody said fucked a dog. And who knows if that ever happened, but that just like followed that person around, right? And it felt like I was just so enamored with like fully engaging with like a dirty suggestion, but also elevating it. It was just great. It was just, incredible.
Even just that one sentence that you just exemplified there, like using dog fucking as a very literal bridge, like that is the literal inroad into the story. But the log line there is that somebody's reputation follows them regardless of whether it's true or not. And that kernel of a game could be applied to any given circumstances. So you don't have to do a scene about dog fucking. You can, they are so good at that. And it's so funny that someone at the festival yelled out dog fucking.
Oh, of course. It was like a late night show. I think it was literally at the Annoyance Theater. It was not surprising.
Right.
But it was, and I loved it. And I was finishing up grad school, didn't know what to do next. And I was like, I guess I'll move to Chicago and see what this improv stuff is all about. And, took some classes at the Annoyance, took some classes at IO. And pretty cliched path through IO. Went through all the classes, got on a team, sort of, had the first team that was like my first love. And then each team after that is sort of like, even if it's better, it's just kind of hard to compete with your first love a little bit. You just love too much that first time.
Do you remember the name of the first team?
Yes, it was James Jackson.
Okay.
And I think the name was just because this is a little bit of a strange story. It was all people from our classes, more or less. And one of the people in my class who was wonderful, but was more of a quiet person, was named James Johnson. And, back in the day, it was, you literally would have to walk to the theater and look on the steps and see if there was a paper posted to see who was on teams.
Totally. Yeah. The cast list days. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, and it's especially wild when you're hoping to first get on. It's like, I guess I'm going to wander by the theater on the off chance that I've been selected to be on a team.
And hope that there aren't like 5 or 6 other people looking at the same time in case I didn't make it.
Exactly.
Like, I don't want to be surrounded by people who did.
Yes.
Yeah.
And on the list, James, on our team, James Johnson was listed as James Jackson.
Oh.
And he was like, he's like, maybe that's me. And he asked. And I remember thinking, if I were him, I would not have made that assumption.
Right. Yeah. Like, that's a real litmus test for like my person. I would have gone exactly the opposite. Like, damn, good for James Jackson. I wonder who that guy is. Like
how close, especially like those are very common words.
Names. Yeah.
Like, how close to your name does it have to be for you to speak up and say, I think maybe is this me? Anyway, so that was the first team, and it included my good friend Matt Young, who is one of my co-hosts on Hello from the Magic Tavern to this day.
So that's when your love affair started. Yeah,
exactly. Although I've told this story before, I didn't like him at first. Like,
oh really?
Because first of all, Suzi, we were all the same level. Like, it was one of those rare, like, everybody's the same level, and then there was one person from the level below us. So immediately it's like, who's this upstart? Who's this?
Yeah. What does he think he has that we didn't have 3 months ago?
Yeah, who is this person that is thinks they're up to the 3 months of success that we've had?
And that was him.
And that was him. And he's definitely a theater performer. And he just, like, what is great about him as a performer is he will just, like, something has to happen in this scene. I'm going to go in and I'm going to do it, even if it means I'm going to be eating shit, essentially. Right. But on a very first, like, rehearsal, that energy can be a little bit like, who's this guy? He's
totally.
Like doing all the things we're supposed to be doing in these scenes.
Yeah. Who's that guy who's like falling on every sword in order to help make us look good?
Yeah.
He's fucking...
It's like being a firefighter being like, oh, great. Who's this guy who's running into the building and saving people's lives?
Right. Ken put the fire out first again, and we all lived. And now we have to look like assholes that, that we weren't the ones. Yeah.
I mean, we could all do it. We know, but we're not like, but we don't have to.
We don't have, I mean, fucking, yeah. Yeah, I would have done it too if I carried a bucket around. I happen to not do that.
Yeah.
By the way,
you got to pace yourself as a firefighter. You can't make every fire the fire.
Right. Yeah. Right. What? Yeah. Let's see what happens tomorrow. Let's see if it can keep this up like he's done every single day. And honestly, he's really, really good. Ken is really good at fires. Yeah. Talk to me about did you do IO and Annoyance simultaneously?
A little bit. I started at Annoyance, and I don't really remember why I made that choice. I started at Annoyance, which I really enjoyed. I took a couple classes, and then I think it was purely a scheduling thing. Like, I couldn't get a class for a session, and I just, even though I'd barely begun, I was like, God, I just really don't want to take a couple months and not have a class. So I started at IO and just kind of got swept along in that, basically. And so IO just kind of became my place.
That took over. You didn't go back to Annoyance after that?
I think I went back. I never took like the last one. I never took like the Mick class, which I know is always supposed to be so great.
Yeah.
Just
what a waste.
Just standing outside that fire being like, I bet there's so much important stuff going on inside there.
Right. Yeah, it's wild. I did the 3 years of shuffling up the mountain to the peak of the Himalayas, and right as I was about to get the wisdom of the universe from the Dalai Lama, I just decided to slide on down.
Yeah, I was like, what's going on this other hill?
Yeah. What was your experience of Annoyance versus IO? Do you have, I know that's a long time ago to recall, but do you have any like when you just even squint and look at the broad strokes? Like any big takeaways from either school that stand out?
I mean, I love that I started at Annoyance because there was a lot of focus on scenes and just like what you need to do for yourself. At IO, as I remember it, like there's a lot of like stuff. It feels like you gotta almost do a couple classes before you're even really doing a scene. Like the first class feels like a class for people who've never spoken in front of people at all, just kind of getting used to that space essentially, which is valuable. But I really wanted to do scenes, obviously.
I remember the early levels at IO, including a fair amount of stuff like mirroring exercises and stuff I had kind of already done in theater school, where it's like, I had that same feeling, like, get me to the part where we make a comedy sketch, maybe I should have done any Annoyance. That would have been great. But so they were throwing you into scenes right away.
Yes. And really trying to like push you to feel something in those scenes, which is definitely something I needed. And something that it still took me a while to really learn that lesson, I think. But I definitely remember teachers just sort of encouraging me to not just be clever and to, tap into some kind of human emotion, which is really good and important. It just took me a while to get there.
What finally clicked it in for you?
Well, this is kind of flashing forward a little bit. I think I learned from a lot of great teachers, but I think the thing that really took my improv to the next level is I did a show called World News Tonight at IO.
Great show.
Which was, a news-based show. And
I want to hear where you were headed, but just for the audience, I just want to run through the concept of the show because it was so cool. So it's called World News, WHIRLED.
Already you can tell it's going to be
it's going to be so funny. But didn't you guys used to you would have like that week's newspapers laying on tables on the stage while the audience was shuffling in with like pairs of scissors, and the audience would go and clip headlines or stories that they found interesting and put them on a bulletin board, and then during the show you would tear down what they had chose and read that at the top of the scene, right? And then do a scene inspired by that. Is that
it's basically, instead of monologues, you just sort of read a headline and a little bit of an article. Sometimes someone would put something like an ad up or a comic or something, and just it's really anything from the paper. And one thing it taught me was like the meta thing it taught me was, man, a good gimmick is powerful.
Yes.
That show taught audiences like how to watch improv because they always understood it. If they came in and they're like, that was my article, they said the article, they did scenes, and you could do anything. You could get so weird and the audiences would we would have sometimes the most touristy audiences, and they would just fully get it and be able to follow us. And
that's
I
great.
really thought that was a really interesting lesson.
And it's so participatory because the audience is on the literal stage at the top, which can be magical for people who are like, aren't performers. They're like standing where the actors are going to stand. And the tactile nature of cutting things out, going through, choosing, they get to feel funny because they get to choose what they think the funniest thing is or the weirdest thing or whatever. And then, you're not just taking one word or one dog fucking. The whole show is made of the things that they picked. It is a brilliant concept. And that's why I wanted to like make sure we didn't blow past that for anyone who wants to rip it off and call it something else. Okay. So the meta thing that taught you is like the power of a good gimmick. And then you were going to dive into the emotion thing here.
Well, it was also good for me because it's very premisey, which is still a big part of me. Like I do like kind of deconstructing something. But that cast was pretty stacked. Like I was really blessed to be able to play with the people that I played with. And before that, I was always sort of thought of myself as like the smart guy on whatever team or show I was on. And then when you're in a show with, Jordan Klepper, Steve Olteen, Sarah Haskins, you're like, I am not the smart person in this show anymore.
Right.
It is not even close. I can't really not that you're competing, but you're sort of like, that's not my lane anymore. And I started to embrace the joy of letting go of being high status, which I think can be like a crutch for a thinky performer, especially when you start, thinking that you have to like define the scene and be in charge of it. Mm-hmm. And that's how you're going to make it be funny. But then also like the joy of being the person who receives the initiation, and either like finds an interesting way to complicate it or really just sincerely taking it in and seeing what that does. And for me, the biggest revelation was, people would have these incredibly clever first lines, and I would realize I would get laughs from just like my almost like non-word reaction, like, oh, or, oh God,
Yeah.
Just like, hey, my honest, sincere, like, oh, that's not good. And that felt really freeing and sort of like a discovery that like who I am and just sort of being present can be funny.
Totally. Yeah, if they're doing some heavy lifting on the back line of kind of formulating a premise initiation based on this thing, or coming up with their clever take or their riff or whatever, they are landing the scene at that starting point. You really don't have to do much in that moment. Later, you'll build the scene more, and you guys will figure out how you want to heighten it. But in that moment, just a actual honest emotional reaction, however small, is exactly what that needs. The sincerity of like, oh geez, what today?
And it wasn't that I was being the dumb guy. It was more, I think, that I was just sort of being the audience surrogate, sort of being the person that was just sort of like sincerely reacting to the insanity of the initiation to some extent. And sometimes that can be a fun subversion, which is just sort of like, I don't know how this jibes with like the rules of improv, but I think I do a lot of like, not an enthusiastic yes but a kind of like, I'm going to try. I'm going to try to do this crazy thing that you want to do, and that you can get a lot out of that sometimes.
That totally jibes with the rules of improv. And I think it's a misunderstanding of the phrase yes and to think that people always need to enthusiastically say yes to the proposition from the other character, which can be more of a no. If the person is like, hey man, let's jump off this cliff for my YouTube channel, and you're like, okay, it's like, where's the tension of the scene or whatever. But the what you just described, that okay, the reluctant yes, or the yes that's infused with an actual tinge of realistic emotion, is something that you are so adept at. I use you as an example in my classes. Like, I'm always like, go listen to Magic Tavern and listen to how Arnie like is the straight man of this world. Like, you are voice of reason in every single interaction, but you don't shut people down. You're not mean. You are emotionally reactive in a way that's like curious and open, but like, hey, hold on, come on now, wait, hold on, that was poop that you fed me. I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't want you to do that again. If that comes up, don't do it. You're just like, you're open enough and malleable enough that you allow room for their character thing to keep happening.
Thank you. I really try to. I mean, I sometimes think of it as over-therapized, like an over-therapized person who's just sort of like, no matter how terrible thing someone says, the reaction is, oh, that must have been hard for you, right? Like just trying to be sort of empathetic, like almost to a comical degree, but also just sort of too polite, with still a healthy dash of selfishness in there, but very polite, essentially.
Yeah. What's the healthy dash of selfishness?
I think that's a good question. I think,
or like, how does that manifest in the scene itself?
Some of it is just in the interaction with my co-host, and some of that is just like doing a show for a long time with 3 good friends, and there's a natural, like, our relationship on the show having its own kind of realistic friendship. And the way, whether it's healthy or not, I think comedy people or friends tend to poke at each other. And that's one of the things I think about with Hello from the Magic Tavern, is that it's about the way friendship is complicated, like how it's important, and how it can fill you up, but also like, and how it is also a weird kind of romance you have with your friends, but how it's also sort of like you're always, 2 of you are teaming up on the other one, or you're just like really annoyed with each other, or you just can't help but poke at each other, or you just don't want to commit to their premise, but you will begrudgingly, but really make it known that you're doing it begrudgingly.
Right. How much of that is actual, like in the moment, how much of that is you actually being like, God damn it, Matt, I don't want to support this idea right now.
Probably too much. I mean, okay, no, yeah. I mean, it's a little bit of some of it is, some of it is I am the one that is playing like a human person. I am actually playing a fictionalized version of myself. So like, the yes-anding gets complicated when you are yourself, and you're also knowing you're going to be stuck with the consequences of these things. So I try to protect I like to present myself as sort of not a positive, like I like to present me. I like to what's a good example? I think, growing up, I really loved Gary Shandling. I don't know if you ever went through like a Gary Shandling phase.
Yes.
Love the Gary Shandling show. Love the Larry Sanders show.
Larry Sanders is one of the best shows ever made. Yeah.
And looking back at that, maybe it's just kind of like a Gen X thing of like, I'm going to play myself, but I'm really just going to eviscerate myself. Why would I ever play myself in like a good light? That just is almost like cringe, as they say now. Like, I'm going to play myself like, and sort of like make fun, like foreground my foibles or my anxieties and my insecurities as much as possible. But I trying to balance that out with also like being a character that just doesn't entirely turn into like a comedy monster construction over the course of years. Like I have to have some kind of base humanity.
Right.
And also knowing like I'm going to meet people and they're going to think I'm too much like my character, and they're going to think all of the fictional things I've taken on are just who I really am, even if they're as absurd as like a running thing that I poop standing up. And so I just, yes, that. And I'm like, that's what I do. But other things I'm just sort of like, no, I'm not going to like say that I've said this misogynistic thing or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, you have integrity, third rails that will not be touched. Yes. When you were saying that the show is about friendship being complicated and it's about all those layers of that, how long into doing that podcast did those themes start emerging for you, and did you start realizing like, oh, this is what this is really about? It's not just a funny thing.
That's a good question. Pretty early. I mean, when we started it, and for people who aren't familiar, and I'm sure many of listeners aren't, I do a podcast called Hello from the Magic Tavern. which is a improvised chat show set in a magical world. And everything that we make up along the way is, it is canonical in quotation marks. Like a lot of things get lost, but we sort of try to have an ongoing story to some extent.
And the storyline, the conceit is that you are a human person from Earth who's fallen through like a space-time rift and landed into this magical world. So you're the only person who's like, you are the audience. You are this human person from our planet trapped in this magical world, and everyone you meet is from that world. So yeah, like just, embedded straight man reporter in this strange universe trying to find out what everyone's deal is. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's a great way to describe it. I mean, to me, the joke from the beginning is, if a person fell into a magical world and instead of going off and having adventures, their first thought was, finally I have a subject matter to start a podcast. This is really, it's like, when you see people's one-man shows and you're like, oh, that's such terrible things happen to them. Nothing really good and terrible has happened to me. I don't know what my one-man show would be.
Right. When am I going to live through abuse so I can have a great run at this festival? Yeah.
Exactly. This is a side tangent, and I don't remember who it is. But I remember someone had like a one-person show back when we were in Chicago that was about 9/11, but it was about how they got dumped on 9/11. I just remember being like, there's something funny here that you're not quite delving into, that is just sort of like, oh, I can't believe how everything has changed today, essentially. Yeah.
I hope their show was called 9/11 is about me.
I've completely, and as I do, I've completely lost the thread on what I was trying to answer.
Well, we may have lost that, but we're going to pick it up circuitously, because while we're here at the origin of Magic Tavern, I want to actually like talk about what the actual origin was. Like, so you were doing world news tonight. There's some period of time there, and lead me to Magic Tavern and talk about the origin story of like how you thought of it or why you did it, and maybe we can connect those dots.
So I did world news for about 10 years, maybe a little more, with a lot of the same people most of the time, including Matt Young. And at some point, Al Rafai, who's also one of my other co-hosts, joined the show.
Brilliant.
Did it for a long time. And basically what changed was, I had a kid. I knew I was going to have a kid, and I started thinking I was not going to be able to perform as often as I had. And at the same time, I really just was falling in love with podcasts. This was sort of when they were still a little more new, like not really new, but, I remember listening to, Mark Maron doing his first episodes of WTF, where he was like sneaking into Air America to record to start that show. And I remember like listening to Comedy Bang Bang when it was still Comedy Death Ray Radio. Like a lot of the stuff that we really think is like the building blocks of whatever wave of podcasting we're on now, like I was really into that stuff and just really into the audio format. And thinking about like, is there some way to make improv work on a podcast? But it was a combination of me thinking like, I'm not going to get to perform that often anymore, but I could record like 3 episodes of something every other week, almost like make it my poker night. And it's just sort of a way to extend that.
Right. I can hang out with my friends, be creative and funny and do bits, and then just shoot it out into the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we, as you know, like we just knew so many people, so many great people. Just an excuse to like every episode bring in some like just sort of killer Chicago performer that maybe other people weren't familiar with, but you knew would just like knock it out of the park.
Right.
And when it started, it was really just popular in Chicago, and probably because there was no one else like yet in Chicago doing a podcast. And it's, it's just like if you're, someone starts a podcast in your family, you're like, I guess I got to listen
totally
to this podcast because they might talk about me.
Right. Yeah. I gotta make sure. Yeah. It is so wild to me that you, like, this was in a time when, you know, as you said, podcasts like weren't huge. Like, for you to independently have the idea, I wonder if there's a way to make improv work on podcasts. And now it's like, that is like a whole genre of media with, like, you know, thousands of shows. And it's wild that your brain thought of that you were like, oh, and that you like had the balls to be like, no, I am gonna like do this. And you know, I know you weren't doing it in order to like make a product or get somewhere or have you couched it as like it's your poker night, which I think is beautiful and wonderful. But it is so interesting that your brain was that visionary to even think like, oh yeah, I'm gonna try this as that. And I just
thank you. I don't want to say like it's still like in a continuum, right? Like like Comedy Bang Bang existed. Like there were things that like existed, but for me the thing I was interested in was, you know, I loved listening to podcasts, just chat podcasts, but I also love serialized story. You know, like growing up watching TV shows, if it had it to be continued, I was so excited. And I wanted a combination of both of those things. And I was like, could a chat show have just enough story to sort of keep pulling you along? Could story sort of sneak in through the side door, basically? Yeah. And that was sort of, I think, the thing. You know, if there is anything innovative about Hello from the Magic Tavern, I think maybe it was a little bit of that. Yeah. It's such a well improvised podcast. It's so funny. We've touched on the dynamic of the three of you, the main hosts, which I want to dive deeper into, but all the side characters you have on are great as well. And my biggest curiosity, like as I binge my way through it, is how do you keep track of all the canonical info? Like, do you guys have like a whiteboard or something of like every time someone says something, you know what I mean? There's like 18 facts per episode of just the facts of the universe and how their months work and all these things. Like, talk to me about that. It's changed over the years. The thing that helped us the most at the beginning was the fact that we would do 3 at a go, right? Mm-hmm. So like we would record 3 episodes in one sitting. It was so fun. You know, we would record, you know, and like Brooke Bright would come in and we'd be like, oh, hey, and it would be a little social and we'd record the thing. And then, you know, that guest was leaving and the next guest was coming in. It was just sort of like hanging out in the green room between shows at an improv theater. So you could have that little social thing. But going from show to show, you know, fast forwarding a week in the course of like 45 minutes, you know, you're already pulling things from the previous episode. And then you do another one, and you're it's easy to remember things in that 3 episode chunk, and things can start to accumulate. And do you remember everything? No, but some things start to stick, and then they stick enough that the next time you record, maybe you don't remember everything from those 3, but some of the bigger things are there, and then you kind of start accumulating again.
Gotcha. Do you ever write things down, like names, important names of like Boone holidays and things like that?
Yeah, we would write stuff down. I think part of it was also, you know, each of us had a tendency to like hold on to our own lore, right? So like Matt, who plays a wizard, is like knows all the wizard stuff, and I don't need to know that stuff. And sort of Adel, who plays a talking badger, is a sort of more social character, would sort of remember all the kind of like social things that was going on in the world and the names of the different bars and different place like locations. And then also it's kind of also as simple as, you know, characters hold on to their own lore too. So if a character comes back, it's easy to just maybe re-listen to their last episode and be like, oh, these are the things that are like, that we at least don't want to contradict about this character. That said, as we get to like hundreds of episodes, luckily we had a really enthusiastic fan base that started maintaining a wiki for us, and that was a lifesaver, basically.
Incredible. Yeah.
Because we
God
could
bless
just
the
like
nerds.
look things up and be like, what is this? Because otherwise there's just no way.
That's what's blowing my mind is you guys are like 500 and some episodes deep, and it's like nobody has that brain. But thankfully the nerds of the planet have you covered.
It's true. Thank you, internet.
Thank you, internet.
You brought us so much.
Talk to me about things that you've learned through the process of doing this improvised now universe, pitfalls that you encountered and then worked your way around, or things that that now you realize are like, I don't know, nuggets of advice you could give someone starting out, or things that you've overcome.
Well, for story, I think, the ironic thing is I actually don't really like super narrative improv in general. Like it's some people, like the people who are excellent at it, like it's always great, right? Like I love like an improvised Shakespeare show or something like that. But, for me, there are a few things more painful than watching like an improv show and that is all one story, and you just suddenly feel the hand on the wheel pulling so hard towards a resolution, and you're just sort of like, why are we even doing this? You don't care, we the audience don't care, we're all just doing our homework to get to the end of this story that is like
Save us that 8 minutes and just do 2 more really funny scenes and we'll be fine.
And because the things we want, like what the joy is, the discoveries and the connections and things like that. So for Magic Tavern, sort of discovering like, it's almost a cheat. Like this isn't helpful for improv, but like you can just have story happen at the end of the episode. You can just say, if we want this thing to happen, if we want to discover that someone has attacked the town, at the end of the episode, you can say, oh no, someone attacked the town. You don't have to like you don't have to manufacture a way to get to that happening, or it can happen at the beginning as well.
Yeah.
Like, but for me, part of it is, I think, at least for me, for us, improv is better at dealing with consequences than solving problems. Like getting to like we're gonna figure out how to get to the story thing we want to have happen. Just have the story thing happen, and then what's interesting is how you have to react to it, basically, or what you do with it.
Because that's improvising, and the other way is writing. And who wants to watch someone like sit with their note cards on a bulletin board and rearrange them and draw strings between them in order to like manufacture their screenplay? That's not an active art form you want to see. You want to see the life, the sparks, the relationships, all of that stuff. Dealing with consequences. I also love what you said, that like if you want to have something happen even just at the very end, there's no reason you have to like build a bridge to get there. You can be doing just like life. We are doing whatever until something happens, and it happens all of a sudden often. Do you, heading into episodes, like, do you plan like just those things? Like, do you say like the story nugget for this episode is going to be someone attacking the town, or do you just discover it? You know that you want something to happen at the end, and you just see what pops up.
A little of both. I mean, most episodes are really just guest focused, right? Like the main most important thing is, who is the guest, what do they want to play, and then if you listen to the show a lot, you'll notice like if there is ongoing story, a lot of it just kind of happens at the beginning, where we remind each other of what the expositional threads are. Usually not even like to a direction to just kind of say like, oh, just reminding ourselves like, oh yes, we're trying to sort of do this thing. Let's keep it in the air essentially. And maybe, that will lead to us like discovering something silly about it, or it'll just remind us and the audience that that's like something going on in the world. We, over longer arcs, like over a season, we usually have like a general idea of a landing place that we're going to, with a lot of leeway to kind of get there any way that we want. And then there will be times when there are specific episodes, like big episodes, where we want to have very specific things happen. And those are always a little complicated, but they work best if you just like, isolate those beats as much as possible. You can even have a lot of beats, but you're just sort of like, and I try to give the hardest work to myself because it's hard to tell other people like, I need you to establish this.
Here's 4 pages of an outline that you will improvise.
I know, and it's not. It's never good when that happens. But basically, you can have a thing where it's like, we know we're going to meet the main villain in the season finale halfway through the episode, have a confrontation. And so at the beginning, you just have the guests and you're like, we're all just going to fuck around getting up this volcano to get to the bad guy. And we can just spend a long time having fun with whatever. And then we just eventually get there. And, maybe there is like a 5 or 6 line scene that has been written that is important. And then oftentimes that's recorded in a different session entirely. And then it's just sort of like, well, this crazy thing has happened. Now let's improvise for another 20 minutes, just sort of like dealing with the consequences of that. And it's usually some version of that, essentially. Just leaving isolating the story and then just leaving as much room as possible to play around all of that, because that's where the fun stuff is.
Right. Yeah. These nuts and bolts moments are totally minimal. They're holding the thing together and getting it where it needs to go, but everything else is improvised and discovery, and that's great. That's a great way to go about it. Have you found, do you get tired of it at all, or do you find new layers of having fun with it? Are you making discoveries as you go, in terms of your own improv skills awakening in different ways, or are you finding different layers to explore as you go?
I mean, I sometimes get tired of it. I mean, we've been doing it for 10 years. I think I rarely get tired of the show or doing the show. Sometimes it's just, I record in my attic. And for the last 5 years or whatever, I recorded in my attic, usually in the evening. So there's a feeling of like, oh boy, I just don't want to go to work, essentially, right?
Back up to the bell tower.
And like all shows, some shows are work, some shows are not, sometimes you're just going to have shows that feel like work, and that doesn't mean they're not good, but you're just not you haven't gotten to that ideal place of it being play the whole time, essentially.
What's something that ignites the play in you without fail, even on those nights where you're feeling the drudgery of it? Is there anything that's that awakens that in you?
I mean, I think a lot of it can be guest based. I think our show is a little bit guest proof in ways that are good and bad. Sometimes I think we can kind of make a episode work even if the guest is kind of just not is a little wobbling, essentially, and there's a joy in doing that sometimes. But then also we can sometimes not give enough space to the guest. That's when I'm usually the least happy, where I'm like, guys, we're not giving this guest their due to really let their premise sing. And I think we've gone through runs of doing that. I think we're not there now, which is good. But the thing that makes me the thing that gets me the most is when a guest is just great, right? Like a guest is just sort of like has this sort of great energy, or just like the idea of what they're playing with is so fun. And it just, we're very like, I don't know if this is reductive to say, we're a very like ADHD show. Like we are sometimes playing like 3 or 4 games all at the same time, and there can be a fun in that, but also sometimes that's a mess. But the best is when something just breaks through all of that and everyone is just like, whoa, this is fun, this character is fun, this idea is fun, we are all doing this instead of our own kind of little riffs or teaming up in different configurations. Like when a guest just sucks everyone in, like you get into that flow state essentially.
Yeah. The shiniest object trumping all these other shiny objects. Everybody drops their juggling balls and like runs to that thing. Yeah. I love that feeling in live improv too, where it's like, oh, we've got to follow this character. Yeah. Do you feel like, so you were talking earlier in your World News Tonight days or pre that about playing the high status person a lot, the clever framer, the person like making sense of scenes or whatever. And that could be seen as one type of like voice of reason. And what you're playing now, you were describing as foibles first, a more vulnerable version of yourself, a little more like allowing yourself to be, made a fool of sometimes, which is like a low status version, but still a straight man's voice of reason character. Do you ever play not that? Like both of those are sort of voice of reason-y. Do you ever improvise just as a batshit person or as the unusual one?
Yeah, I mean, well, first, like just within the show, I do try to find lots of different layers of what I can do with my character, with myself. And like sometimes I'm like just a crazier version of that, or sort of like, fall into some game of having some strange obsession or something like that. Or I'll try to have a run of shows that are like, I'm going to give myself something like I'm just going to be stabbed in the chest and I'm just like dealing with that. I have a sword stuck in me, and like, how does that make me emotionally feel that I have been stabbed and almost died? And so there was a long stretch where I would kind of every 10 episodes be like, what's the new thing that is both like a physical thing you could draw if you wanted to draw me, but also to just say like, this is a new thing that my character is going through. But then other times I sort of decide, we've done a lot of me stuff. Like maybe it's time to like get back to being the host, spend more time just supporting the show essentially. And, but to go back to your original question, I used to play a lot crazier stuff. I've sort of fallen out of the habit of it a bit doing this show, doing almost exclusively doing this show for the last 10 years. And I sometimes play characters. I have like a weird wizard character that shows up every once in a while, which is really it is fun just to be a chaos agent, because usually I'm the person that has to keep everything on rails.
Right.
I do like doing stuff like that.
I was going to say, like, in those moments, is it like your pent up id gets to like kind of come out and have some chaotic revenge a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's most fun. Like there is a joy in playing multiple characters at the same time, and I do enjoy that. But it is most fun when I occasionally just have the Arnie character exit for a while and just get to be the weird character, because being the sort of like person that's keeping things on the rails and the character that's trying to take them off the rails at the same time can be fun, but you're kind of also robbing yourself of the joy of being the chaos character a little bit.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me of like being a kid learning chess and like playing chess against myself. And it's like I'm doing the moves, but some of the fun is gone because you're not really beating someone, or you can't figure out what.
Yes.
Right. Like you're missing an element, which is like not knowing what's in the other person's brain. If you're playing both sides, you know what's in your brain, so you can't delight the other. Yeah. I'm always impressed when people adeptly play multiple characters in a scene for any length of time. Did you find that there was like a learning curve with that, or do you have any sort of how do you get around, how do you wrap your head around that?
I mean, it's easier to do an audio format, I think, probably, than doing like on stage.
Sure, you're only doing the work of the reality that's happening, not also having to play the physicality.
And it also helps that, I have two co-hosts, so there is, and if there's usually like no shortage of people, so there doesn't have to be a lot of me talking directly to myself. But even then, that can be fun, but we do a lot of like jokes of just sort of like, oh boy, you were quiet for a while. You really seemed, you seemed really upset by what that other person was saying, because you didn't say anything while they were here.
Did you get homesick again, buddy? What were you thinking about? Yeah.
You were so quiet.
Talk to me about these. You cited that sometimes there's episodes where you're just like blown away, and the magnetic energy of the guest is infectious. Do you have standout episodes in your own brain? I know it's so hard to pick favorites, but do you have like a handful of episodes that you're like, I think that was like our best work, or everyone was just on all cylinders that day?
For part 2 of this episode, go to yesalso.supercast.com. If you like this podcast and you want double the content, head over to yesalso.supercast.com and subscribe. You can also help us out for free by subscribing to us on YouTube and talking us up to your improv communities. If you have a question that you'd like us to answer in one of our Q&A episodes, or a topic that you think would make a great bonus episode, put it in a 5-star review. If you're a theater who would like to host us for a live recording and improv show, let us know at yesalsopod@gmail.com. A very special thanks to our producer, Ryan Rosenberg, audio and video editor, Brian Kessler, and Britt Faye, who does our marketing. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week. No, we won't, Suzi. That's not how podcasts work. They won't even see us. They will listen to us. So it's actually the opposite of both things you said. Thanks for listening, and you will listen to us next week. Maybe. We don't know.